Welcome back to Short Scale Modelling. This is part 14 of Hobby Boss's M1070 truck and tractor with the M1000 heavy equipment transport and semi-trailer. Scale is 1:35. In this part, I'm going to be starting the flatbed part of the build, concentrating on getting all the basics in first of all, and there's quite a few little brackets having to be made up and put on. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So to begin with, I'm making up the mechanisms that go inside the trailer, and these are for the wheels and steering columns. Each one has its own individual plate to make up, and essentially it's a series of bars and rods that just get placed together. The foot pad itself goes into the main plate before placing on this top crossbeam. Now this top crossbeam does not get cemented in place. Then I made up two piston rods that you would have seen me make up in previous videos. It's the same thing, so I didn't bother showing it again. It's just for a different unit. And this gets placed on its own backing bracket that then in turn gets placed onto the main plate. Each one does have its location point, and of course these don't get cemented in position either. Similar to the arm of the trailer mechanism, these won't be in a solid place until everything is in situ. I should point out though, there's only one with the piston mechanism, all the rest are just straightforward crossbeam that goes on. Once they're made up, they go onto this central plate here. Again, each one has its own location, and each one is also a different size. So you want to make sure you're getting them in the right position. It's quite easy to get these mixed up and put them in the wrong way. On the outside of this column, a series of little connectors go on here, and these are going to be the connectors for it's going to hold the dock into position. That's all the pipe work that's going to be going on. And once they're on, I can then put the sidewalls onto the bottom part of the mechanism, and this will just form one constant beam. Once that's all in place, there's a series of rods that go onto the mechanism on the crossbeam leaves that I placed on. Each one has a little nub for these cross beams to place on. Again, they only go in a certain way, so study the instructions. Some go over the top of others, so you want to get them in the proper sequence. And once the push rods are in place, there's another top part that goes onto the inner mechanism, and this locks everything off essentially. You have to push thread these through the sidewalls to get them connected. They are quite awkward to connect. There's not a lot of room in here to move them in position. So it will require quite a lot of patience to get them in position. Well, it did with me anyway. Once they were all in, there's a all top cover that goes over them. There's a little bracket that goes inside each cover, and as you can see there, each one's a different size and slightly different shape. The brackets going in are all the same size, so that's not a problem. It's just the different sizes of these covers that you have to make sure that you get lined up properly. It's on to the main trailer bit itself. There's one or two little things that have to go on first of all. These end pieces here, the connection points are set in a little recess of the main bed. And then on either side of the bed, there's these reinforced pieces that go on. You may have to clamp these down to ensure a good fit. It's just the nature of the size. Next is the end piece that goes on. That's just a straight fit. There is a little location points just to help them stay in place. And it's same with the opposite end also. This is quite important to get this piece in the correct position, because the central column will be running onto this. And next to go on is the central column that I made up. That just runs right down the center. It's quite a nice fit. However, I had to take this off not long after this because I forgot to put in a metal rod. I will show it, it's just a little bit of heads up. Now, I fitted it in and then realised my mistake. So I took it back off and placed this little metal rod inside. It's quite a tricky little thing to fit. It sort of threads underneath the main bed. There's a little recess track that it just sits into though. And then I just replaced the column. It wasn't any drama. It was just a simple little mistake there. I actually pressed a little bit too hard on that. I had to re-cement one of the sidewalls that sort of collapsed in on itself. Next is the end parts. These covers, make sure you get them in the proper position because there's other parts going to be added onto this. And if you don't get them in the proper position, the other parts simply won't fit. These corner pieces here, I actually put them in the wrong position. I put them so the edges was button against the main frame. That was incorrect. I had to pull them forward slightly, but I didn't know that until a little bit later. But they hadn't set yet, so it was fairly easy. There's a couple of canisters to go in here, and the brackets for these are photo etch parts, which I'm placing on now. And I simply bent them with my tweezers at a 45-degree angle. And then placed in the canisters. Now the instructions say put the brackets on it before you place it on into the bed, but I found it easier to put the brackets on first and then just place the canister in. There's a little hose connection that does loop inside the bracket, but if you've secured it well enough, it shouldn't be a problem. Next are the extending feet for the trailer bed to go on, and this is where you'll find whether you've placed the previous parts in position or not. So I'm just checking the instructions and make sure I've got them in the right place. And this is where I discovered the little corner piece that I put in was not in the correct position. I was able to pull it forward. The correct position, the leading edge should butt into the shaft for the extending leg. It wasn't a great drama because it wasn't set properly at this stage, so I just prized it off and replaced it on. Next we have a series of brackets to make up. These are little loop brackets that are going to be embedded into the flatbed itself, and I would imagine these are for connection points for cargo and tanks and things, but there's quite a lot to make up. The main piece is a solid bit of plastic with a little bracket that just gets squeezed into. You don't put cement on these. At this moment I'm just tidying everything up using my hobby knife. There's also a series of connectors to go on as well, and like all the others, this is to connect the dot to the from the suspension to the pipework. The location for these and connections are fairly straightforward. There's a couple of ways you can approach this. At the bottom of the screen you'll see these beams of plastic. They go on it as well. Now you can either fit these first before you put in the tiny brackets or vice versa. I decided to put the tiny brackets in first, thinking that would be easier because they're the smaller part. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. It depends how you feel really. I just feel this way is slightly better. The downside is when I'm putting the beams on, I may move a couple of the brackets and I have to squeeze them back in position. But that's slightly better than trying to place them in once the beams are in place. And the next thing to go on are the beams. Now they can be a little bit tricky to put on. You have to push one end first before snapping down onto the actual bed itself. That's just because of the shape of them. If you try pushing them on towards the central beam, they won't fit properly. You have to anchor them in at one position first and then flatten them down onto the bed. And next I'm going to put the feet in for the extension feet. The actual foot itself, it just connects into a main shaft, which then goes into the actual housing itself. There is yet more brackets and lights to go on at the ends of these. The lights are made up of photo etch parts bent into position with a clear lens put on. The brackets, there's quite a lot to make up. These will be going on the side of the truck where my hand is now holding the actual bed. And they're made up with the main housing and a little loop of plastic that goes, and it has a little bar to stabilize it, which goes from the underside in to create the housing and a loop or a bracket to go onto the side of the bed. And these get placed on where I put the cross beams. And this is where I'll end part 14. I would like them all to be completely dry before I go on to the next part. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you go and check out the channel for my other builds, and maybe something there that interests you. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this build, but on my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.